Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is Ahmed Elsamadisi. Ahmed is the founder and CEO of Narrator, a data modeling platform that allows data teams to answer questions and make business critical decisions in minutes, focusing on data analysis, engineering, and science. Before Narrator, Ahmed joined WeWork as the first hire on their data team. He also worked as an AI engineer for missile defense systems and for self driving cars. Before founding Narrator, Ahmed graduated from startup accelerator Y Combinator and was named a member of the Forbes 30 under 30 list in 2021. Very excited to have you today, Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to share a tip.
Yeah, beautiful. So, I was very impressed by, by your background. It seems that you've worked in, some of the coolest startups around, and you've been doing all of this great stuff that is, working in big data and is going to have a profound effect on everybody's life, right? Because that's what big data is all about. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what makes you so amazing.
Wow. I'll tell you who I am, and you can decide if that makes me amazing or not. At its core, I think I'm just a person who became really obsessed with how people make decisions. And that obsession has just kind of unfolded in so many different ways. So, starting with AI and figuring out how robots can make decisions similar to humans, to self driving cars, to missile defense, to how do we make decisions with data, to all of that coming together at Narrator, where we're not just about giving you a platform for you to do data, but we're about helping you and kind of guiding you to make the best decision. And that puts us in a really interesting place with how do we ensure your data is correct, to how do we help you ask the right question, to how do we get you to answer the right question in the right way, to how do we help you understand the analysis, to how do we convince you of the analysis, to then how do we get you to take action based on it. And I think that puts us in a very unique place because most other data tools kind of leave that open ended. Everything is on you. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And we kind of focus on the psychology of it, the human aspect of it, the data aspect, and all of it seamlessly come together to create an experience that we love.
You know what's interesting about big data, and I try to explain this to different people, right? Is that it is all around us all the time, right? You turn on your phone, you look for something on Google Maps, it automatically knows where I am, more or less what I'm trying to do, and where I need to go and plotting the best way to get there, right? And even if I'm in a foreign country, right? Let's say, for example, I need to get to a shopping mall called, I don't know, the train station, right? I can type in the word train station and it'll know that train station in that language and still bring me to the right part. That doesn't happen automagically. Someone actually needed to program that, put in the syntax, put in the, just how the computer could figure out, like, okay, well, this is what he really wants, right? He doesn't
Yeah.
want to just go to any train station. He wants to go to some specific place. How do you explain big data and data analysis to people that maybe aren't as in tune to just how powerful these devices and the information that we have available today is? How do you explain that to people?
Yeah, so actually, it's really funny because big data came from a big data initiative, and the idea was to make big decisions with data. And it's kind of been like really weirdly in the media to be like, you need big data and terabytes of data. No, that's not what you need. Data is information, and information can be used to make better decisions. So simply understanding from you come from a marketing background, just which ad source is getting customers to come to our site, and really which ad source is getting customers to stay in our site. The idea of making big decisions with data is really not looking at individual customers, but seeing kind of overall how people are behaving and what gets your customer to make the decisions that you want. And you're kind of like really unfolding and kind of like peeling the onion back in layers. So you can start with just basic ideas and just like how are you doing over time to like what's my cost per acquisition to well which ads are giving me a lot of clicks that I'm paying for, but those people are just bouncing right away because like they're like kind of what's called like accidental clicks or misclicks. Two, like who's giving me the right audience? All these kind of questions is about you getting more specific and more detailed in making a more specific decision that affects your customer. And that's kind of what I always think about big data is don't worry too much about the data, worry about the decision and think about what is the inputs that you need to make that big decision.
So what I'm hearing you say then is you it starts with the question that you're asking and then figuring out how to get there. Is- I mean, is that accurate?
Yeah, so I think so many of the insights that you've seen in the world come out did not come out from data. It came out of a question. And I think that the idea, like, there's no system that you shove data in and it just goes, boom, here's answers. If you, when we used Watson at WeWork, um, it was like the best way to reduce churn is reduce people submitting the move out form. And we're like,
Oh, yeah,
cool.
that's also true.
That's yeah, that's an interesting situation. Well, what am I supposed to do with that? So there's a lot of like that fun fact in data, like put everything in a machine learning model and see what comes up. Usually it's trash. The idea here is what is the decision that you're trying to make and how can data guide it? My old professor used to always say all of data is color coding and ordering an Excel sheet. That's all of data, it's all of AI, which is how do I prioritize for you what's important and how do I help you understand the scale? So like if you're thinking about should I invest my time in getting more women or getting more elderly, and I can tell you like the conversion rates, all I'm giving you is a scale of where to dedicate your energy. And that's what data is about. So all good data starts with a good question. And a good question leads to a good analysis, which leads to a good decision. And that's what's the most important thing. And that's what we like to focus on.
I love that you brought that up, that a machine isn't going to learn on its own. You don't just stick a kid in school and expect it to learn on its own and lo and behold, he's 18 years old, graduated from high school, and it's all good. No, there were a lot of other inputs that were coming in there that were helping to the mold the direction to where you wanted to answer the question that you're talking about, right? And one of the things I find fascinating in what you just validated was that it doesn't require this massive amount of you know of let's just call it metadata. Like as I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed, whether I stopped on this particular picture or I just kept on going, or whether I turned the app off and turned it on again. There have been all kinds of visualizations like that. But the fact of the matter is, let's just take a digital marketing agency, which is closer to home for me. It's not like I need to go and get this massive, like you said, terabytes of data just to figure some things out. Really, what it comes down to is the question, like, what am I trying to get to? And then what are these tools giving me? Right. So like the Google Ads Manager or the Facebook Ads Manager, like what can those tools give me to help me get to the bottom of that question? Where do you see things go a little bit sideways? Like if like if you ask the question, but maybe that question isn't 100% on point. I would imagine that if you don't have good investigative skills and you don't ask the questions correctly, this data can take you on a weird tangent, right? So,
Yeah.
using the WeWork example, let's just hide the move out submission form. Yeah, there have been companies that have done that, but it's not necessarily the right thing to do. How can you help companies not go down that rabbit hole of, chasing information that may not be relevant to them?
Yeah. So two ways. One is we enable people, the way you ask a question is you must first have correct and accurate data that you trust, and you must be able to get down to the individual customer journeys. So Narrator, when we built Narrator, the idea was to build something you can trust, something that you can build that intuition, something that makes sense and has that intuitive nature. So you can like see an aggregate number, like a conversion rate, and be able to dive into like 10 examples of each customer and see how did that happen. When you're using tools like Facebook Ad Manager and Google Ad Managers, they are lying to you. They are incentivized for you to give them money. So when you ask Google how well Google did at getting you a return, it's gonna be like, oh, we gave you a great return. It's like asking a kid, what do you want your grade to be? And the kid's gonna be like A plus. Like they don't know. So I think about when you come to think about questions and answers, you got to think about what's the incentive of the tool to get you to answer the data. So first of all, being aware of like the fact that all these different tools are very misleading. Words are very misleading. These like especially Facebook, like notoriously been sued every single year for lying about its metrics or using words that are deliberately misleading users. When you do your own analysis, and what we kind of do at Narrator is we kind of try to nudge you into being very clear about your question and building a tool that enables you to get that clarity in the question and the clarity in the answer. So if you were to say like, how does the move out form impact likelihood to churn? Narrator would be like, it's not actionable. It might impact it, but it's not an actionable recommendation. And the reason why it's not actionable is because like 90% of people who like leave have submitted the move out form, and we don't see the opposite. So we don't see people who don't submit the move out form who leave, and people, and therefore Narrator, by explaining it in a story and in English, it's able to deduct that reasoning and help you understand, oh, this is not a good feature. This is not actually something I can act upon. So we look at that as like in every degree with how do you input the question to make sure that your question is very clear and it's actually what you want, to how do we analyze the question, to how do we give you that intuition by giving you example customers and you can watch what they did, to the final analysis not being is this statistically significant, but is it actionable? And to be actionable, there's like 7 more things that you want to check that you can know you can act upon it. So I think it's the job of the platform to enable those kind of details.
I'm glad that you brought up that point about being actionable, and you alluded to, like, say, some other data points that you need to look at in order to see if you can in fact take action on it. How does that work? How does the AI figure out what is actionable to me but may not be actionable to someone else?
So it's about one of the things that Narrator does is that it standardizes all of data. So by having data in a common format with common assumptions, it allows you to reason about data. So what we're actually doing is not like having a machine come up with the answer. What we've done is we've been able to build a way to capture how a data analyst will deduce a decision. So data analysts might come in and they will, like in one example of one analysis that we have available, data analyst might deduce, like, let me check if my overall conversion rate has been consistent. Okay, I see it was up and now it is dropping. Okay, well, I know that this data now in my old days is different than my new days. So I have to throw away this data and focus on currently what's happening. Okay, so now I figured out that it's like the last 262 days is when it's been consistent. Now I'm gonna use that data. Then it has to deduce the way that an analyst would do. Let me see the distribution of the features, like how it happens. Let me check if that feature, not only in aggregation has been statistically significant, but has it been consistent so I can make sure it's reliable. So if I was to do an experiment every week, I see that the data still continues to be consistent. Then I check statistical significance. Then I check, okay, what percent of our users are being there? If I see a consistent percent of our users, and it's like 95% of our users are doing one action, not really actionable. You're not going to make that much of a difference. Then I can simulate the impact of what would it be, and I can make my recommendation. So it's all these additional steps that are happening. And not only that, this whole analysis needs to rerun every single week and needs to rethink through it every week because every week your customer is changing. So we see this all the time. Like some group, let's say, viewing the pricing page is leading to higher conversion. So we're pushing people to view the pricing page, and your overall conversion rate is going up. And then it actually starts having a counter effect where people start shoving everyone to the pricing page because your users are like your team as it sees the metric go up might start hacking it. And there's a great book like Tyranny of Metrics that explains that. And then Narrator will email you, hey, that assumption you made has been flipped. Actually, viewing the pricing page is now having a negative effect. So think about every question you've ever asked, every analysis you've ever done. You need to be observing that over time and continuing to monitor it to actually be able to make that one good decision.
One of the visuals that I had as you were going through that explanation was the problems that Zillow had, in the housing market, because they had this whole program where they would buy homes based off of an algorithm, based on this anticipated, like they were expecting the prices to go up. And actually, I was one of the lucky recipients to be able to purchase a home while their data was tanking them. Right. So what
Yeah.
happened? Like they thought that they were going to get this really big return, but guess what? The appraiser comes back, $50,000 left, and they had to eat it. And that
Yeah.
was like, all right, cool, win for me, right? But what happened was, as we're trying to, as we're trying to figure this out, like I dug deep. I was trying to figure out, like, okay, why did Zillow do this in the first place, and how did they end up in that position, and what are they doing now? And one of the interesting things was, well, we just went through a pandemic, right? Which monkeyed with everybody's, with everybody's assumptions, and it wasn't a rational market, for them to be in. It was there were all kinds of these other factors that maybe data scientists like yourselves weren't able to plug into the software, as quick as possible. What do you see as, some of those factors that could go and mess up your data and mess up the AI and cause you to have these inconclusive results?
Yeah. So I actually blame the algorithm. That's just shitty algorithms. Like you don't see that in cars. You can't be like, oh, something happened and somebody did a random motion and now the car hit them. Like that's not what good algorithms do. That's called a shitty algorithm. And what's happening now in the industry is that everyone is like shoving in machine learning models and hoping it sticks out. And then the machine learning model is being trained and it's not under human understandable. You're like, I don't know, it's making decisions. The AI decided. And the human being is not reasoning about whether that makes sense or not. And then what happens is that the AI starts doing shitty and they go, retrain it, just retrain it on your data. That's just like, to me, like a failure of a data team and a failure of data science. Proper data analysis and proper data algorithms should be you are making your assumptions based on like learning something. Like I said, right? I might say that viewing the pricing page might help. I've taken all these pieces of analyses that help me deduce that these are the 6 features that I'm going to use to power my algorithm. Now, all these 6 assumptions need to be retested. You don't need to retrain your algorithm. The features themselves need to be decided on. And that's important. And you need to consistently check if those features are still driving the value that you expected. Like this doesn't happen in AI. That happens in shitty machine learning approaches that people are doing black boxes. Like you don't see this in cars, you don't see this in missile defense, you don't see this in robotics, you don't see this in like a lot of the things that have to reason about it because they're designed to be fault tolerant. Like they're not designed to allow it. And people like to blame, oh, random, the world's fully random. It's just Zillow failed. And it's actually not just Zillow. I've seen so many companies try to shove their data into a machine learning model and then tank. And nowadays, there's like a rise of companies that are like, we're going to monitor your machine learning model. So when it tanks, we let you know. It's like, you're just duct taping the same problem after the same problem. We've spent hundreds of years of changing the world and making decisions and creating so many innovations by doing quality data analysis and having the humans think. And you can't just outsource a human thinking to a computer because the computer will keep retraining and it just will blow up somewhere because you forgot to give it a feature or something. That's just not how computers work. And you need always, 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 always to think about your core analysis, what is driving your decisions, and then how do you continue to check that those things that you're driving your decisions continue to be valid? Because it's really easy to be just tossed aside and really just fuck up. You've seen it so many times, company after company after company. I can name like 30 of people just doing poor analysis, and you hire like a data scientist, they shove an algorithm, they're like, look, it works. I got a 98% accuracy. And you're like, what does that even mean? Is it doing what I want?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
98% accurate.
yeah, and getting the old data to behave based on the model that you trained on the old data. Go put that in production. Let me see what happens. Go ahead. And you see that you put it in production and you see that like it sucks. And you're like, what's going on? And then you have this illusion, oh, just wait, it'll be trained. No, it doesn't get trained. It's a failure of design. And that's the problem. And that's why we built Narrator to be fundamentally different.
What kind of case study, or what can you tell us about a company that has used your approach and and it was a success? They were able to really increase their, the value of the company, improve sales. Talk to us a little bit about how someone can use it and has had a successful outcome using your software.
Yeah, so I'll give you 2 sides. I'll give you one side of a situation where someone has been able to accelerate their development, and the other side is someone has been able to make decisions that affect their business severely. So, first side is we worked with a company, I think his case study is public, so Code Academy, and they were answering questions, and their SLA was 6 weeks. Every time somebody submitted a question to the data team, it took 6 weeks to get an answer. By using Narrator's approach and using Narrator's approach, software, you can actually answer questions significantly faster. And they were able to reduce that time from 6 weeks to 1 day. The SLA today is 1 day. Every question comes in, they can answer instantly. The second side is an analysis. When people ask questions, we see this a lot. What people often love, like, how many times does someone have to use my product to get hooked? And we've seen customers do this with like one company that helps with as a sales tool found that they need 3 recordings, and they set that as their company goal. And it was like the company goal wasn't to get people to try the product or do this and a million things that they hypothesized. It was just to get people to their third call, and they increased their retention rate by like 32% by just getting people to a third call. We had another customer realize that the most important thing is like it was like a more data gap was to match within some time. If you get a first match within X number of days, you're more likely to continue using the app. So it's these kind of decisions that you can ask, like how does the number of calls impact likelihood to retain? Like Narrator can figure that out, can deduce the right answer, can give you the exact thing that you need, and you're able to iterate. And if it like happens to be in a month that it's no longer the number is not like 3, it's now 4 or 5, Narrator will let you know as it's making decisions, as adjusting to your customers' behavior. You might be growing and you're getting more customers from different places, and now they're changing their behavior. So these are kind of examples of just one, providing speed in being able to answer questions, and two, providing quality in decision making.
All right, cool. Thank you so much for that. Ahmed, where can people learn more about your company and how can they reach out to you directly?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So you can come on LinkedIn, message me, add me, friend me. I'm always excited if you have a question that you're struggling to answer, or are interested in just knowing how you can answer questions in Narrator. I'm there. You can go on our website, narrator.ai, or we just changed it to be narratordata.com. And then finally, you can email me directly at ahmed@narrator.ai. I'm always here to take questions and help. So I'm excited to kind of hear from you all.
Amazing. Ahmed, thank you so much for joining me. This is it's been a lot of fun. I love nerding out on this stuff, right? And especially talking about things that are way above my head. But you know something, it's an intensely interesting subject, and I'm really glad that the like the tools are coming down the pike that that normal people can use instead of it just being in some computer room somewhere. So, thank you so much for joining me.